I'm here this morning to tell you about the perfect meal. One might start by thinking, what's that got to do with illusion? Well, I think what we see on the plate, what we taste in the glass, is all kind of illusion. We're all convinced we can taste the food that's on the plate. We can enjoy the flavours and aromas of the wine in the glass. But in fact, a lot of what's going on is created by our brain, it's created by the atmosphere in which we eat and drink. So it's all about everything else that surrounds the food and drink that creates the experience. And by knowing kind of the illusions that go on the plate, you can help to design better experiences, healthier ones, that will start in some of the world's top restaurants, but our aim in Oxford is to try and help those insights percolate down to the high street, to the hospital, to the old people's homes, and elsewhere, to everyone's kind of home dining table, to make food and drink taste better than it otherwise might. And our aim is really to go for that perfect meal. That would be the sort of thing we'd all love to be able to recreate on a much more regular basis. Something we can all probably point to. We've all had our own perfect meal, probably different for each one of us. But maybe there's something common in it between individuals, and if you can extract that commonality, study it in the lab or in the restaurant, you can then give it inspiration, guidelines for chefs and people at home to make food taste better and healthier. And I think MKF Fisher really captures the idea of this perfect meal beautifully when she says, once at least in the life of every human, whether he be brute or trembling daffodil, comes a moment of complete gastronomic satisfaction. It is, I'm sure, as much a matter of spirit as of body. Everything is right, nothing jars. There's a kind of harmony with every sensation and emotion melted into one chord of well-being. That's what we're after, but the question is how to study it, how to measure it. And the tendency amongst the scientists, the neurogastronomists, is to stick people like you or I in a machine like this, a brain scanner, give them something to eat, something to drink, and see which parts of the brain light up. This is it's kind of your brain on flavour, or neurogastronomy. And we can find by doing such things that if I tell you I'm going to give you some really expensive wine, the brain lights up more than if I tell you it's going to be a cheap glass of wine I'm serving you. Or if I tell you it's one brand of cola versus another, again, you'll see a shift of activation in the brain. So this is neurogastronomy. And there's a temptation to use this kind of science to try and understand flavour and those great meal experiences. But I think there's one problem here, which is that in fact you have to imagine yourself in one of these brain scanners, kind of lying on your back with your head clamped still, with a tube in your mouth that periodically squirts in some drink, the cola or the wine. You can't swallow it, because if you swallow it, your head will kind of jolt, and that will spoil the brain scan alignment. So you've got to lie there, keep it in your mouth, until the experimenter says you can swallow, and then we'll wash it all away with a gobful of artificial saliva. Not what they tell the subjects it is, but that's it. So it kind of tells you something useful, but it doesn't tell you about the perfect meal because no one has had their perfect meal in one of those situations. The same is probably true for my lab in Oxford, where we do experiments like the one you see with the lady. We're looking at the effect of the glass. Does the glass from which you drink change the experience of what's in that glass? Lots of people say that it does, but is it really true? Well, we might blindfold you so you can't see the glass. We have the glass on an agitating stand, so it's slowly rotating to release the aromas. And we might put different glasses there and see which one smells best. And again, no one's had their best glass of wine in a contraption like that. So we too kind of miss the point, I think, when trying to measure something, that we lose maybe the real thing of interest. So maybe a better place to start is to go back to our own personal perfect meal moments. And that could be fish and chips by the seaside. It could be going to a Michelin-starred restaurant. There's no right answers, lots of different answers. But for me, if I can pick two examples of the perfect meal, one is this from the last couple of years, Le Chateaubriand in Paris, recommended by a chef, but he recommended a different restaurant the night before, and that was kind of miserable, sort of a Japanese chefs with no soft furnishings and very strange. So we had no real expectations of a good meal here. And you can see the frontage itself doesn't look like anything special, just kind of a regular bistro. You're going to walk in there, but then within a course or two, one suddenly realised you're in the hand of a kind of a modernist chef collective with grand ambitions, and for only €60 you're having a 10 or a 12 course tasting menu, which for me is kind of the perfect meal on the one because it was cheap, €60 for 12 courses. Coming from Leeds, that's not a bad thing. And then separately, it was a surprise, it was better than I expected. And I think that's a key part for many people's perfect meal. It's so much better than I was anticipating, and that's part of the enjoyment. The problem is you can't really study that. And now once I've told you what a great restaurant this is, I've spoilt it for you. Because if you ever get to go there, it won't be as good as it was for me because you know how good it should be. And it can't be. So there we go. We'll leave that one aside and we'll focus on my other perfect meal. Not only mine, but that of my brother and my parents here on our summer holidays in Colombia, a very beautiful country on the Caribbean coast of Cartagena, an old Spanish town. We've been to lots of fancy restaurants in the capital, Bogota, and all over the place for a month-long holiday. And I asked my parents, what was the best meal that you had on this trip? And it's here. It's hard to do this place proper justice. We're kind of in the middle of a roundabout, surrounded by taxis, honking their horns, 30 degrees, sitting on plastic chairs, eating from a styrofoam cup with a plastic spoon. That is so all wrong. And what we're eating is even worse. It's kind of prawn cocktail, a dish that you could never serve nowadays with a straight face in a restaurant. It's so 1970s but somehow in that place, at that time, with those people, that was the perfect meal. Not just for me, but for all of us. What is it about that experience that made it so good? It wasn't, I think, about the food. That's the illusion. It's in fact about everything else that surrounds that experience. It's about being with your family and the good mood that induces that makes things taste better. If you're in a good mood, the food tastes good. If you're in a bad mood or breaking up with your partner, it never tastes good. It's also partly about the atmosphere as well. And kind of a version of this is sort of this, what's known as the Provencal rosé paradox. And we've all had a version of this. Maybe we haven't been to Colombia, but maybe we've been to the Mediterranean. And we've been sitting there on the beach, looking into our lover's eyes. It might not look like Denis here, but put whatever face you want in front of the character there. He's a 2 Michelin-star chef. And we've got a glass of wine. And you kind of know that wine will taste like the best glass of wine you've ever had. So good that you want to buy a few bottles, bring them back and open up on a cold winter's night, such as we have at the moment, in front of your friends and show off about what good taste you have. But then when you bring it back and you open it up, it's just not the same. It kind of is the same, but it's not the same. It's lost something. And maybe you think it's something about the way that the wine travelled in the hold and it got cold and that spoilt the wine. It's not that at all. It's this illusion about flavour and the fact that we think we're tasting the wine in the glass, but our brain cares about everything else. The sound of the seagulls, the smell of the salty sea air, the warmth of the sun on our backs, all of that is playing into the experience, and top chefs are capturing that insight in the dishes they serve. So Denis there, who we just saw, 2 Michelin-star restaurant in Vevey in Switzerland, halfway between Nestlé HQ and Charlie Chaplin's final home. When you go to his 2 Michelin-star restaurant, white tablecloths, there's no cutlery on the table, there's no glasses, there are no plates, there's no nothing. There's just this. A plastic cow. And people wait and say, well, he told us to be here at 7 o'clock and we're here and everyone's here in the restaurant now. I can see all the tables are full, so nothing will happen until somebody picks up, curiously, that plastic cow. And think, well, I wonder what it is. Is it the salt or the pepper shaker? And when they pick it up, he'll go, Meh. It's a little cheap €1 cow. And he makes a mooing sound. And as soon as the first table does it, they'll be laughing. And then you can guarantee within a minute, you'll have a whole restaurant full of mooing cows, laughing diners, and that is the moment when the first dish comes out, because Denis has successfully, with nothing more than €1 a table, enhanced the mood, and he knows that will improve even the taste of a 2 Michelin-star restaurant. So he's capturing that kind of family element that we had in the roundabout eating the prawn cocktail. Another chef who's captured part of that Provencal rosé experience is Heston Blumenthal, and here we have the sound of the sea seafood dish served on the outskirts of Slough. A plate that looks like a sea with sand and foam and seaweed and seafood. And when it comes to the table, the waiter will bring a conch shell out of which dribble some little earbuds. He'll say in his best French accent, he recommends that you put those earbuds in before you taste the food. And if you do, you'll hear these sounds, the sounds of the sea, of the waves crashing gently on the beach, of the seagulls squawking and flying around overhead. And we've done the research with Heston in Science Oxford to demonstrate that seafood really does taste better, especially on the outskirts of Slough, if you capture some of that kind of atmosphere of the seaside. It does make the food taste better. So knowing about the illusions and what drives our real perception of flavour can help chefs to create much more memorable and talked about and enjoyable experiences. This has been the signature dish on the Fat Duck menu now for about 6 or 7 years. And from there, it goes further and further. Now we're off in Ultraviolet in Shanghai, a restaurant whose location is kept top secret. You get picked up from somebody's house, taken off blindfolded, and then you appear in this place. A 12-course tasting menu of French chef Paul Perret. And this is French chef serving fish and chips. Maybe there's something not quite right there, but anyway, he's serving fish and chips to his audience or his diners, I should say, in Shanghai. And what happens? Well, it's fish and chips, so we have the sound of the sea, just like the one you heard, but we also have the kind of the British flag projecting on the table. It's England we're trying to replicate, so we have the atmospheric kind of rain spattered windows in the background, and then a bit of the Beatles as well to kind of wash it all down. So these top chefs know about the importance of the atmosphere, and those top restaurants are increasingly thinking about that multi-sensory atmosphere, how to get it right, to enhance, to get their diners a little bit closer to that perfect meal. especially if you're paying, I don't know, $1,200 a table, it cannot just be about the food. It has to be the whole experience. Okay. So that's part of it. The perfect meal is in large part about the mood that you're in when you have that food. Number two, the perfect meal is in large part about the atmosphere in which you are eating or drinking. Part of the answer, number three, is this kind of idea of expectation. So here we have a dish. Within the blink of an eye, when you saw that picture, your brain decided what that was. Your brain created expectations of taste and of flavour. It looks like a red ice cream, maybe sweet, something tasty, maybe I'd love a bit of that strawberry ice cream, maybe a mouthful, maybe later, but I'd have to go to the gym, kind of bad for me. All of those thoughts rushed through your mind, consciously or otherwise, but in fact, that's a mistake, because that is actually a frozen crab or salmon ice cream. Popular a century ago, salmon's also pink, so it's kind of appropriate colour, but you were expecting strawberry, and if you tasted that, and you got this unsurprising taste of saltiness, you go, ugh, I don't like it, it just tastes too salty. Somebody else who was told, this is a new recipe, this is food 386. When they taste that dish, will say it tastes just right. They will really enjoy the flavour and say it's been seasoned perfectly by the chef. So this is a dish that comes from the Fat Duck restaurant, and it was kind of the dish that convinced the chef, no matter how good the stuff's coming out of the kitchen is, if you don't know what's going on in the mind of the diner, if you don't set the expectations right, they will not enjoy the experience as much as they otherwise should. So that's kind of a truth that can be sort of broadened out into this claim that's been around since Apicius, a Roman chef or scholar, that we eat first with our eyes. We nearly always see the food before we taste it. Whenever we see that food, our brain is configured to set the expectations. Where is the juicy fruit? Which tree should I climb? What food should I avoid? All those decisions are made by our eyes. So controlling the visual appeal of food is so important. And hence why when you take something like the salad you see here on the left, a taste of Kandinsky, this is a salad. It could just be a regular tossed salad. You would have said it was okay. But when we take exactly the same salad ingredients and reconfigure them to look like one of Kandinsky's paintings hanging, actually the other way up, but hanging in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, people will say that salad tastes better. They will eat more of it, and they will pay more as well. Exactly the same ingredients, but if you play to the eye, and you can call it gastro-porn if you want, but if you play to the eye, people will enjoy the experience more. And finally, I want to think a little bit about technology. That's kind of the emerging part of the story of the perfect meal. It's about edible storytelling. And all this great technology we have in our pockets that we've just been told to turn off, quite often that's just distracting us from meal times. How could that technology be repositioned to enhance the experience of food? It could be like this, serving your seafood off a tablet. Some of them are washable nowadays. You can stick them in the dishwasher. They'll be just fine. Maybe that's it. Or maybe it's something like this instead. A plate here, we have Ferran Adria, who is thinking about how to use the kind of illusions on the plate to make healthier tasting foods for his restaurant, but also for an anti-cancer children's hospital just outside Barcelona. And here's part of the way in. There you have something that's red. What is it? This time it really is strawberry ice cream. Your eyes did not deceive you. But if you serve that ice cream on a black plate versus on a white plate, it tastes different. The ice cream served from the round white plate tastes about 10% sweeter and 15% more flavourful than the food on the black plate. Exactly the same ingredients. Maybe it's colour contrast, some sort of illusion there, or maybe it's something else. Whatever it is, you can deliver 10% sweetness to the diner or the hospital patient without any of the extra calories, and that seems to be a good thing. And chefs are getting increasingly interested in using this neuroscience. And finally, how else can we maybe reduce the sugar content of food while keeping the perception of the diner constant? And one idea is this. It's the sonic cake pop. Here we have a diner in London having a dessert, bitterness and sweetness wrapped up in a lolly. If they find that dessert too bitter, they can dial one telephone number on their mobile device. If they find the dessert too sweet, they can dial up a different telephone number on their mobile device. Here's one sound. You might think, is that a bitter sound? Or is it a sweet sound? Here's the other sound that they might hear. Is that bitterer than the first or sweeter? Sweeter. Can't literally be sweeter, but it is sweeter to most of us. There's no absolute right answer here, but 900 of 1,000 people would say that is the sweeter sound. If you dial that sound up on your mobile while eating that dessert, it will taste 5 to 10% sweeter than if you're hearing that lower pitch brrr sound instead. So this is technology at the table leading to enhanced eating and drinking experiences, perhaps with a healthy outcome. I couldn't leave without this. My favorite example, augmented reality sushi. The original sushi on the left. Imagine some time in a few years hence when we fished the seas to extinction of our favorite seafood. And that memory of that great sushi of our youth is just kind of a faint memory. Can we bring the experience back? If we do really eat with our eyes, perhaps we can here with a relatively cheap headset that you can buy on Amazon to watch your movies in a kind of immersive way at home. We can recreate completely different textures, different kinds of fish. And if you see one fish but taste another, our prediction is you'll be led by your eyes and we will be able to recreate the experience. So we started with the perfect meal, showing you many of the factors that are important here, your mood, the atmosphere, emotions, expectations. And I want to end just thinking about 4 places where this kind of research might apply beyond the modernist restaurant, because that's a bit esoteric. I think I can point to examples in the hospital space. I can point to examples in older people who have lost their sense of taste when they're 60 or 70 and are having to put 5 or 10 times as much salt in a bowl of soup as a young person to get the same taste. We've got to think about something to do there to avoid those unhealthy food behaviours and the obesity crisis too. Could that in some small way be addressed by moving from black to white plates, playing a bit more of that sweet sounding music? And where do the insects in the top right play in all of this? I think maybe they're food of the future. Nobody's perfect meal at the moment, but maybe the more we know about the mind and brain of the diner, the more we know about the illusion that is the flavour of food on the plate, the closer we'll be to convincing all of you that that's a very delicious looking insect. Thank you very much.